a foreign Star Works production.
Hello there. Do you like music and bourbon? Well, you came to the right place. Welcome to the Bourbon Groove.
What up, you dusty, dirty freaks, and welcome to a brand new, all new, and if you already listened before and already know what you knew, that this isn't new episode of The Bourbon Groove. I'm your host, Tyler, as always, and we're about to get into another episode, tasting music as we drink whiskey as we do, in just a moment, of course. But before that, if you feel the need to like, subscribe, tell a friend, follow, re-listen to each episode a million times to get me clicks, I would appreciate it. Let's talk about some clicks, speaking of. So Spotify Wrapped just came out, because if you're on social media or just a person in general, you're going to find out about it. It's either you're going to see somebody's Wrapped about their favorite song of all time, or you're just going to see some company doing a parody of the Wrapped to sell whatever shit they're trying to sell you. So we're the same. So as one point, this podcast was a Spotify exclusive podcast for a year, and then we stopped doing it because they stopped doing music. So we're just like, all right, well, this was kind of part of our deal. So now that you're not doing it, then we're just going to go branch off and go somewhere else. And, I'm still working on the Apple Podcast thing. When I say working, I mean procrastinating and not actually doing anything to better that. But it is on pretty much every other podcast listening app you can think of. But, yeah, it was a sad time and whatever. Spotify, they were there through the thick and thin, blah, 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 blah. This is where I pretend like I actually talked to people from Spotify and that we had a friendship or a relationship, which we did not. So I'm not going to lie to you. We keep it 100 here, but the show is produced through Spotify. So I know what's going on. We got our own little Wrapped thing last week as well. And it was pretty cool, pretty eye-opening stuff. If you follow us on the Instagrams at The Bourbon Groove, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I got to see our number one episode, which is still Adam Lewis Is My Guy, which is my Phoenix CX Adam Lewis tribute show after he passed away. I had a whole idea for another show, and I was like, you know what, screw this. We're just going to be talking about Adam Lewis. You could still donate to his family, by the way, and I will put a link in the show notes just so it's there. If you don't know, he died from pancreatic cancer, as men often do. It's pretty hard to come back from that. So, long fought battle, good dude, and I'm really grateful to be a part of sharing stories about him and sharing the music, that Phoenix CX put out. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the band. They're still touring. Not many original well, I guess it is kind of original members. So Phoenix CX has been through a whole thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't care, I'm sorry. I'm going to bore you for a couple minutes here. So Phoenix CX was this pop punk band out of Texas. They got really big through a movie called Jailbait, where their song All My Fault kind of hit big. Mark Hoppus of Blink-182 was their manager at some point, and they just, big, and then just died out because of whatever reason. I think, honestly, priorities, my guess, because they would come back every so once in a while, do little shows here and there, but they weren't actually, touring after their 2001 album, La Chuza, which is their best album, if I do say so myself. But They just kind of disbanded, then rebanded, and then they would play shows here and there. Sometimes the band would be all the original members. Sometimes it'd be all these other guys. So basically, right now you have the original drummer of Phoenix TX, the original guitar player of Phoenix TX, and then a whole bunch of other guys. So I don't know what they're doing for Adam yet. I don't really honestly care because if Adam's not in it, if Willie, as they call him, Will Salazar, isn't the singer, it's really hard for me to get behind it. Even with Pineapple Head in it, I don't really feel much of a connection to it anymore. It's just not my thing. But so shout out Adam Lewis and his family. I'm so grateful that I got to talk about him on the show, and hopefully people have been donating to your cause and keeping y'all afloat and all this stuff during these hard times. That was a sad day. I don't know. I'm gonna relive it for just a second since we're almost done with the year. Let's go and rehash this, okay? I remember seeing that and being just so bummed. And my wife came into the kitchen and she's like, I was like crying. And she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, Adam died." And she's like, "Who's Adam?" And I was like, I had to explain it to her. And meanwhile, I'm wearing my Phoenix Tech shirt. I'm like, "Hello," obviously. Very sad year for that in particular. Personally, you got to look at the contrast. People always get stuck in these other things, and you're just like, oh, my life is sucky because of A, B, or C. And then sometimes your life is really great, but there's other elements out there that bum you out. The best thing to do that I could suggest is don't make it a part of you. You know what I mean? Like, don't let it define you. I was very bummed, but this year has been pretty interesting. We moved up to New England, and it was a very hard move to do because when you've lived in the South for 8 years, you've gotten accustomed to not paying as much money for anything. And so that was a big shift for us. And then it's been snowing pretty much every day for the last week. So that's a big change. But the positives here is my kid has been growing up and becoming more and more of a person. He's 5 years old right now. Great kid. Funny kid. I mean, he has some jokes. Like I just talked to him right now before I went into record. I'm like, "Hey kid, I'm gonna go record." And he's like, "Okay, Dad." And he's like, "I love you to death." And I was like, "Okay." and then I became straight in here. I'm like, "Oh boy." So he's a funny kid. We went and saw he had this singing recital thing with his class where they did a few Christmas songs I've never heard before in my life. And he sang with his classmates. Saw him very happy, very proud of what he was doing. And that was a huge, huge parent moment. And yes, I have it all on video. And yes, I've took 1,000 pictures because, not because I'm such a proud dad. I am, but also, got to share the wealth, with the extended family, the direct family, any family who wants to look at it. I will share it with them as long as they promise they're not doing it for creeper reasons. Like, my family lives in Arizona. My wife's family lives in Massachusetts. We live in New Hampshire. And then there's, sprinkling around the entire country and probably in other countries. But we're not going to share that information because, I haven't signed the NDA yet. Let's talk. No, we're not going to talk about it. But anyway, it was a cool thing to see tonight. Very good stuff. And yeah, just a proud dad this year. And I know that just turned into a whole thing about me, but honestly, that's what we got to do, because it is my life. And just the things that happen to us or the things that happen adjacent to us or the things that affect us personally, not to let us be brought down so much. I mean, for various things that have gone on this year, but I'm sure a lot of people are on edge or sad or whatever. And we're not going to get into any of that stuff because, I don't want to be honest. And I haven't had anything to drink yet. So let's take a little drink and then we'll get into the actual show. We'll talk a little bit more about the Spotify Wrapped in just a second. So we are streamed in 8 countries, which is really cool. Blew my mind. We're big in Australia, so shout out Australians for listening to the show. You know full well that I love Australia. I mean, I've never been there, but I imagine it's pretty awesome. It's the only place that's on my bucket list. Like, I don't want to go to England, because, we know why. If you don't know, Revolutionary War, baby. So, no, I don't want to go to England. I don't want to go to France. I don't want to go to Europe. Not really, anyway. But I do want to go to Australia. They have great music out there. I mean, shout out Greta Ray, shout out Gang of Youths, shout out Baker Boy. These are all artists that I love that are from Australia. And yeah, that's just one of the reasons. But also, supposedly they have a great whiskey thing going on as well. Like they went from, I think it was like 24 distilleries in 2014 to now they're at like 355. That's pretty crazy. And shout out Archie Rose. Who else? Starward, Nova, Sullivan's Cove. I mean, Lark. Just shout out to all those brands out there doing the damn thing. I can't say enough good things about you. Yeah, and this is me pandering, and that's just what we do here. Because I find out that, Australians love this show. This is gonna be a fully only Australian show from now on. I gotta I got to pivot to who's listening. Then maybe we'll just move to Australia to escape whatever's going to happen here. I don't know. But that's good. That's extreme, and I've already moved. All right, I don't have enough money to be moving again. You know what I mean? But it would be pretty freaking cool. But yes, the Wrapped was a really cool thing. I appreciate the information there. They don't give me too much information, but that was the stuff that were highlights that I wanted to share with all of you. So thanks for listening. It really means a lot to me, and this is not meant to make money or be a business or be biased in any way. This is just me having time by myself to talk to you. And I covet that time because otherwise I don't have it. So it's great to have this thing where I talk about music and whiskey, the two things that I like and loathe, depending on what we're talking about. But anyway, we're also on this show, we're going to get into that cyber attack that brought Stoli down. I have a personal little anecdote with that, which they also own Kentucky Owl, which is why it's relevant to the show. They're being brought down to the bankruptcy world, and more on that later. But first, let's get into the bourbon and music it tastes like, because that's what the show's about, right? And then also at the end of the show, we will give you a couple of clues on what our Christmas episode will be covering, because, I could just flat out tell you, but I also like to make you guess, bring it back, Maybe you'll think, oh, I got it right. And then you'll be all cool, and you'll be that 0.0000001% of the pop who cares. And you're awesome. So you're my bread and butter. Or if you have a gluten thing, gluten-free and butter. I don't know. Or if you don't like butter, we're getting too much into it. I already popped a couple of CBDs. So we're going to start blabbing on for no reason. And I've been up since 3:00 in the morning. I have shoveled. It is late now. And yeah, my mind's starting to go off. This is not normally when you record, but it's the only time I get. And one of the cool things that we got on that Spotify Wrapped is my consistency score was off the charts, because we have released a show every Wednesday since we were a show, basically. So I remember that we used to be on Mondays, then we moved to Wednesdays, and then we had a Sunday show, and then we also had a Thursday show. This is all long ago, and we were called Bourbon on Wax. And then we were on Bourbon Note Tasting, and then now we're the Bourbon Groove. All that changed in just 1 year, just a little bit over a year. But a lot of things have moved around, shifted around, but we have consistently put out at least a new episode every week for the whole time this has been a show. The only time we've ever missed one was that time when my kid got hurt at the pool a few months ago, where we didn't do a Sunday sloshed, which is fine, because, when you're Sunday sloshed and upset or sad or concerned, it's not going to be pretty. And even those shows weren't that pretty anyway, so I couldn't imagine how terrible that would have been. But I was like, this is not important. I'm just going to hang out with my kid. So we've been consistent there. So shout out Spotify for shouting us out for that. I love that. And I still say us when it's just me. So let's get to this. So about a month or so ago, I was like, shit, man, I want to try this Evan Williams cider whiskey thing. Like, it's like cocktail. You know what I'm talking about? Like, Evan Williams makes a cider. Jack Daniels makes a cider punch. When it comes to the holidays, people like to do this shit where they take a little bit of their shit and mix it with a whole bunch of other shit to make new shit. I wanted to try this Evan Williams cider. I'm not much of a fan. If you are somebody who listens to these shows consistently, you'll know that I don't really support said brand very much. Well, at least the company that owns them. But that's my own personal thing. But I don't let that stop me from buying it, because sometimes I'll buy an Evan Williams bottle and bond. Why not? I've had a barrel proof Elijah Craig. I've done the toasted. I've done the rye. I've done, other various Heaven Hill products. But you don't have to like it. It's like all you folks that were buying the My Pillow shit when you knew that guy was a psychopath. It's the same idea. So, if you like the product, you like the product. And you don't want to support it, that's fine. But honestly, my $20 every few months isn't going to make or break them. It's not going to be Stoli level of bankruptcy, because one guy decided to not buy their shit anymore. Oh man, no. So why hold yourself back when you can enjoy things that are good? You know what I mean? And that's what makes us different, I think, from all these other shows out there and channels and whatever, where we kind of like get hurt about all this stuff. And it's like, it's not about us, it's about the mass market. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, but you don't have to be a little bitch about it, or dick, or whatevering. I don't know. I can't think of what that would be. But so let's get back to the story here. So the cider whiskey from Evan Williams, or liqueur, whatever it is that they're doing there, I was like, I've got to try this. So I went on the New Hampshire discount liquor website, which you can do, and can find the inventory of every store and what they got for everything. If you know what you're searching for, you're going to find some pretty cool stuff. Like I found that the elusive Corsair triple smoke that I wanted to grab at one point has all been moved to 2 different stores that are about 2 hours away from here, and might be worth the trip, because I haven't had a triple smoke in like 7 years. So I really want to try it again, because it's been a long time. My palate has changed. Be interesting to see how my mesquite smoked palate now likes this other stuff. That was pretty damn smoky. But I am going off on all kinds of rails, so I'm sorry. So I went on that website, found out where I could get the cider. It was about half an hour away. I drove up there. By the time I was there, they had sold out. Or no, they didn't sell out. No, that's what happened the other day. Oh, man. So this is what we're doing here. And, a better show would stop right here. We would go back, delete that, and then continue with the story. But no. So a few weeks ago, I was like, hey, I'm going to buy this Evan Williams cider thing. So I went over to the store, and instead of doing that, I got the Barman 1873, which we did a show about, comparing that to the 5 Trail, both made by Coors Whiskey Co. Yeah, Coors Whiskey Co. And that was a great show. I like that. But that was also when we did Outcasts. It was really interesting. But anyway, I don't know what the point is. So I got the Barman 1873. Then I also got a whiskey that I thought that I would never see, and I was surprised, to say the least. I had seen the official press release on this piece, but didn't think we would get it to our state as soon as we did. You see, with the new HAMP being the whole liquor control, government control thing, sometimes it takes a while for us to get stuff. Like, for example, the Jack Daniel's Cherry Coke came out, and it was at the grocery store next door to the liquor store about a month before it got to the actual liquor store itself. So it's those kinds of things. Like it takes a little bit longer, and they have a whole lottery system that's different, and it's all out of wacky whackers. But it's New Hampshire, so it's sales tax free, and there's no markup. So I mean, you're like living in your life. Like, we'll talk more about that later, because I got to stick to a single point here. But so I was excited to try this Evan Williams thing, but then I was like, never mind, we're going to grab this Barman 1873. And then my eyes zeroed in on a new Jim Beam product that I had heard about and seen. And again, I never thought I would actually get to see in person. But when I finally realized, or finally make peace with the fact that New Hampshire is a Jim Beam state. It's like, how it's like live free or die. Here it's like buy Beam or die. It's very interesting. So you can get it, anything. Like you can get your Bookers, you can get your, 12 years, your 10 years, all that stuff is readily available at any given moment at the store. It's not like this crazy zany shit that I was dealing with in Tennessee, where it was all marked up by 50%, or you couldn't get it, or it was all wild. Now it's like, oh, here it is. You're welcome. If you like Jim Beam, there it is. And I have bought more Jim Beam in the last, 5 months I've been here? Around there, however much that is. However many months it's been since the end of March, I bought more Jim Beam than I have in my entire life. It is nuts. But, it lets you try something different here, and I appreciate that very much. Making me want to try it, because Jack Daniel's is here, obviously. we get wild turkey here, which is great. But I've had all that stuff. I can get the rare breed for $47.99 out the fucking door right now. Last time I bought it, I think I paid $65 for it in Tennessee. So that's the kind of shit we're dealing with here. And I could just go over and grab it right now. But I like to try something different every time. And it's very rare that I go back and buy the same bottle twice. And I know that's not really supporting a brand, but with Jim Beam, I guess I've bought at least one bottle of every product they've ever made, apparently. But it's a cool thing, to say the least. But that's what got me into this. And of course, what I'm talking about is the Jim Beam Winter Reserve. So this is like a very fancy, sexy ass looking fall like bottle with a like maroon label and like a filigree of gold lettering and like with Jim Beam on there. It's known as the Winter Reserve, of course. This expression was made to highlight the fall and winter vibes of the whiskey with notes of vanilla and cinnamon, according to the label, of course. So does it have winter vibes? Yeah, you're going to have to tune in to find out. Sorry. I'm trying to be like everyone else, get you like clickbaited in, and then we're going to end the show, and then you'll find out next week. Kidding. Of course, that's not what we do here. But so what is this? Why does it matter? Simply, this Winter Reserve is a double barrel offering that is uniquely different from the double oak offering Jim Beam already makes. It's like a spicier version, than like the smooth, woody, and sweet flavor of that double oak. And for $5 more, which is not bad. So what makes it different? That's probably what you're asking yourself. Well, Jim Beam Winter Reserve is age stated. It's 6 years old and is aged in toasted barrels before a second finishing barrel of yet another toasted barrel. So you toasted barrel freaks, this one's right up your alley. It was like, Pimp My Ride, Jim Beam edition. It's like, dog, we heard you like toasted barrel whiskey, so, we aged that shit in toasted barrels, and then we finished that shit in toasted barrels, and then we poured it in a toasted barrel bottle. Hashtag. That's what I get from this vibe, and it is pretty dang interesting. So they're not the only company that has aged their shit. Shout out Chattanooga Whiskey for making it their standard process. Just, dropping truth bombs on you. Sorry. So this thing here, this whiskey, this bourbon whiskey is something special. We're looking at, it's like 86 proof, just like the double oak, but it has that aged flavor to it with a pleasurable pop. Yes, you got that spice and vanilla, like a sexy Mexican hot chai latte thing. It screams winter or something. You know what? Let's try it again. A sexy Mexican hot chai latte thing. There we go. It's like when you drink this, you can picture an all-white house interior with all-white Christmas lights and a mantle with stockings hung with the names of the various animals you own. That is the vibe this bourbon is giving me. So it's not winter in a glass, but it's pretty damn good. As we do here on The Groove, we tasted some music, of course. A full album, actually. As I set the kitchen for dinner making the other night, I poured me a glass of this whiskey that I had got for the wife exclusively, but instead drank most of it off myself as I often do, and instantly a band popped in my head. And this drink inspired me to listen to the album by CAAMP. With 2 A's, of course. This whiskey pairs well with the folk quartet out of Ohio. Hey, let's go ahead and talk about that. But first, let me take a little drink, and let's pretend like I'm not reading this. All right. It's good times. Drinking whiskey on the microphone, I feel like such a freaking man, you know what I mean? But anyway, let's get back into it. Let's tell you about CAAMP. Well, CAAMP is an American folk rock band known for its heartfelt lyrics, harmonious vocals, and rootsy acoustic-driven sound. The band was formed in 2013 in Columbus, Ohio by two college friends, Taylor Meyer, who is on vocals and guitar, and Evan Westfall on banjo and guitar, who met at Ohio University. Their sound blends elements of folk, Americana, indie rock, and country, drawing comparisons to acts like the Lumineers, the Avett Brothers, and Mumford & Sons. And yes, that was straight ripped from Chat GPT. Because, we're a parent here, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you that's what happened. And also, don't use Chat GPT. I asked the same question 3 times and got 3 completely different answers every time. So, since your boy is... it is funny because people will swear up and down by it. And I'm gonna tell you a little hack secret on the Chat GPT. Get an account. As soon as you get an account and you can log in, it'll tell you the truth. When you don't and you just use it for free, and it's free, but if you're not logged in because they want to be able to track what you're doing, they're gonna give you some bullshit, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But since your boy's about the folk music already, Spotify and Apple Music was suggesting CAAMP to me before. Their song "By and By" is one I've heard before for sure, but didn't like really dig it or anything else. But well, until an episode of New Amsterdam, of course. So the wife and I, we were watching the last season and a half that we had missed of New Amsterdam. You see, halfway through season 3, I think Hulu lost the rights to stream New Amsterdam, or maybe it happened earlier or later. Either way, we lost our way to watch the excellent work of this hospital drama show. It's my favorite hospital drama show, and it's when I worked at a hospital and I watched it. So it's been a long time because I've worked in 2 hospitals collectively over a span of 8 years. So man, that show lasted a long time, eh? But so maybe I don't exactly know when it happened. There was a lot of stuff going on. We were moving. We had a kid. I don't know exactly at one point when we lost our ability to watch the show. But yeah, this is how long it's been. All right, I'm sorry that I'm not keeping a focus here. So I didn't have a kid when I watched the first season of New Amsterdam. You know what I mean? And now I have a kid, and I finished watching it a year ago. So it's crazy. Crazy to think these things when you put all that into perspective. But that just a little thing in there just so you're like, oh, that's so interesting. I can't wait to not remember that. I feel you. I hear you, and I'll try and reel it in better. So later we'd find that New Amsterdam had ended abruptly, and we were like, well, I guess we'll never know what happened. And then eventually it popped up on Netflix, I think, and then we were able to finish out the series, which was great. If you're not familiar, around season 5 of New Amsterdam, they decided to cancel it. I don't know why. I don't think they had bad ratings, but maybe they did. But all TV has bad ratings these days, so I don't know what happened there, but they ended up rushing the end of the series. So at one episode, you're like, oh man, I'm feeling these feels. And then the next day it's like, oh, guess what? This is how it's ending. And there's no work through to get there. So you're kind of like watching like, what? Did I just miss like 10 seasons of the show? It was a trip. So if you have watched New Amsterdam and know what I'm talking about, let me know and tell me what you think about that crazy abrupt ending. That blew my mind. But since we're not a TV show podcast, I shall get back to, as they say, the point. So, surprisingly, New Amsterdam has played a few songs from CAAMP before, and so I guess I've been preconditioned to already like this album before actually hearing it. So it's a trip, just like when, oh nope, I gotta re-listen. No, we were gonna say, so whenever like an ad plays a song, and then 6 months later that song comes out, and then you're like, oh, I like this song. It's because it's a familiarity thing, and it tricks your mind into thinking that you like the song. And I feel like that's what happened here, because I was like, oh, I really like this band, and it's like, oh, it's because I've heard it because I watched New Amsterdam. So I don't know, but one of the last episodes of season 5, they played the first song from By and By called "Feel Like Home." As I just talked about, that Chat GPT, I always call it GBT. I know it's GPT, but that just hurts my southern talking. So telling me it told me it's from 3 different episodes during 3 different seasons, but all during a point in the show that was emotional, and the song was used to convey that emotion, end quote. It was very interesting. So again, log in and have an account. Anyway, so they told me the truth on that situation. That was on season 5, episode 3, called "The Big Day," is when we featured "Feel Like Home." So if you want to go ahead and watch that show, I'll pause and wait for you. And everyone else who isn't going to watch that, you're just going to have to listen to me drink, and then probably go back to work, and then come back, and then we'll finish this up. But no, but really, that episode is bonkers. So it's about like a wedding, and there's an explosion at the wedding, and the hospital is trying to figure out what's going on and stuff. And there's like this really creepy little girl talking about how she's getting married or something, and everyone thinks that there's something wrong with her. Spoiler, there's nothing wrong with her. Well, I guess in a traditional sense, there's nothing wrong with her, but basically she's like 7 and she's getting married to like a 30-year-old dude or something. Very creepy episode. But I don't recall what the emotional scene was about. Certainly not that big day part that I just talked about, but your boy was crying the whole way to his Shazam app to find out what that song was called. And bam, there was Feel Like Home. It must have been a sad moment, like realizing that there's a bunch of creepers out there who are allowing a little girl to get married to an adult. I don't know. But with these lyrics, like, take my name when I'm dead and gone and throw my ashes in the river. Know that I lived my whole life long and gave all the love that I could have given. I mean, hello. If you're not crying now, I don't know. You're a soulless. You're a soulless bastard. So it's a touching joint, enough to make me finally give CAAMP a try. And boy, girl, non-binary, MC Hammer, this album is great. In preparing for this show, and after a fun-filled night of getting sloshed while I made dinner and listening through to this album, I listened to the album yet again on a snow-covered forest drive to the next biggest town, where I got my alcohol from. And this album is easily snuck up on my top 20 of the all times. I know. Big headline here, guys. Breaking news. It's crazy. So there are 12 tracks on this record, and they're all sausages, or how the British would call bangers. But 1776 says, oh, fuck that shit. Anyway, it's a perfect drive through the forest album and just a chill album in general. Give it a listen. And as a reminder, we do a continuous playlist on Spotify that features song selections I have curated for this episode. Link, as always, are in the show notes. I have also played with the idea that I would just be putting by and by in its entirety, but instead opted to listen to the other 2 albums CAAMP has put out, including 2016's self-titled record and 2022's Lavender Days, and I have included some songs from those as well. I'm unsure of why I didn't get into the band sooner, to be honest with you. I mean, it could be because they reminded me so much of a friend's band. Shout out Poor Man's Poison from Visalia, California. That it made it hard for me to listen to. That's what I'm guessing, but I don't know. Either way, I'm making up for it now. Before we tell you what Jim Beam and CAAMP are doing these days, and we'll talk a little bit more about that whiskey, let's bring back the best thing to happen to your ears since drums. Here's 50 States of Whiskey. Hit that theme song, baby. 50 States of Whiskey theme song. So if you're new to the show, I'm going to tell you what 50 States of Whiskey is about. Yeah, so basically I go through every state in this fine union of the United, and I look for a distillery that I feel is authentically that state. It is kind of a hard thing to do because not all the time have I had it. And so I like to really delve into it more, learn their stories, talk to some of these folks. I mean, either through social media or actual interviews, which we've only done one, basically because I don't really want to do interviews. But I didn't know about a brand, and I was like, I want to talk to the guy who founded it, and I found out more stuff about it because they are so secretive about it. They're not about the story. I'm talking about Trainwreck Distilling, by the way, in New Jersey. If you're wondering, I still talk about it because it was still a really cool thing to do, to actually talk to the creator and founder and distiller of said distillery, Aaron Diamond. And yes, I will boast about that till my dying days, until the very last episode of the Bourbon Groove, whenever that might be. I will still be talking about it because it was a really cool moment where I didn't know very much about a brand, and then I actually talked to them. You know how, like, with Jim Beam, I could go into full story mode and tell you about the whole history of Jim Beam. We have already done that a couple of times. I believe the Alicia Carr episode was probably the biggest delve into the Jim Beam, but we've covered them 4 or 5 times on this show, so I don't need to rehash the same old story over and over again. Hey, some dude was named Jim Beam. They named the company after him. End of discussion. they own other brands. They're owned by a Japanese company. They make good stuff. They helped Jack Daniels make stuff when they couldn't make it in Tennessee during Prohibition and all that other stuff. So Jim Beam is a company that deserves to get recognized, and I think they're great. I don't need to tell their story anymore. I'm not going to talk about the master distillers there. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's a product that they make. I think like 3 or 4 different distilleries encompass Jim Beam, and it's all very good stuff. I like it all. And if you have a problem with it, that's fine. You might like Heaven Hill. I don't. So you buy all your Heaven Hill, I'll buy all of this Jim Beam. But let's get back to the 50 states of whiskey. So since CAAMP is a product of Ohio, we might as well name our choice for the distillery we think best represents the Buckeye State. There are several. One big one comes to mind, but me personally, I don't really like, so it's going to be one that all whiskey snobs have a problem with. That's right. Our pick for Authentically Ohio is Watershed Distilling, baby. Founded in 2010 by Greg Lehman, who quit his former job, which I'm assuming was Ninja. I don't know. Watershed Distilling has been producing anything and everything that is distilled, using only Ohio-produced grains, including spelt, a pain-in-the-ass style of wheat that has all health nuts pooping with regularity and ferocity, however you manage. I think that spelt has been responsible for at least 200,000 toilets being replaced. So shout out spelt, Thanks for, making people do what they do on the toilet, but with with vigor, you know what I mean? But anyway, so you tag team the distillery with a kitchen and bar, and you have exactly everything you're looking for in a distillery. They even make a nocino. It's like an Italian liqueur that is made with unripe black walnuts. I'm talking before it can makes the nut. They take the dang thing and hock to it into alcohol making process. It's pretty freaking cool. What's not cool is seeing all the hate this brand has gotten over the years from influencers. Hey folks, until you distill and make your own whiskeys, perhaps, be a bit more cool about your words, right? I mean, I know we've dissed a couple of brands in the past and today on the show, and I don't take that back, really. But I do, and like in a fun way, right? I mean, not like this, almost a tears way that some folks do. They don't have to like the product, but you also don't have to like talk great lengths of shit, right? I mean, it's like, why waste your breath, Why do you want to bring down Watershed Distilling because it doesn't taste like the whiskey that you like? Oh, it doesn't taste like something you like. Oh, that's too bad. Listen, man, I'm going to tell you a secret. Or woman, non-binary, Portuguese ninja tosser. Don't know what that is, just made it up. Not everything that you like is going to taste like something else. If that was how the case, guess what? We wouldn't have so many brands for everything. There would only be one cola brand. There would only be one water company. There would only be one anything. The fact of the matter is there's other brands out there that do nuanced flavors that are important to their area or their vision. You do your terroir or terroir or tour. I don't know. However you say it, don't care. But it's like, it's that, or it's just like how the people wanted to make it. It's like, you can buy Progresso or you can buy Campbell's. What soup do you like the best? You know what I mean? So that's how I look at all this situation. People take this whole whiskey thing too seriously. It is a product that's meant to be consumed at the end of the day. It is not meant to be this huge influential thing that changes your life. If it is, you have an alcohol problem. This is the first step. This is an intervention. I'm telling you, kids. So that's what I'm saying about that. I know that I just kind of went on a little tangy-wangy, but the fact is people have been saying shit about Watershed, and they're wrong. I've had Watershed Distilling, delicious stuff, very unique stuff. It's not, caramel, vanilla, cherry. It's actual, whiskey. And that's what I like. I like whiskey to taste like whiskey. I don't want it to taste like a dessert. Not interested in that. There's a time and a place for it, but for me and personally, if I'm just going to be drinking whiskey, I want it to taste like whiskey. saying, because when you drink the sweet stuff, maybe it stops you from having cake or whatever. Maybe that's why I've been having a lot more candy recently, because I've been drinking whiskeys that aren't sweet. Maybe that's exactly what it is. Ha! See, when you solve the problems, this is what I'm here for. I'm here to give you ideas here. I'm trying to give you an experience to teach you, the life of drinking whiskey where you don't sound like you're an alcoholic. But anyway, that's what I had to say about all that stuff. Let's get back to the point. So if you don't, that being said, when researching this authentically Ohio brand, I found some backtracking from these supposed influencers, especially when they were offered their own barrel picks. It was very interesting because you'll see on one episode like, oh, this is not good. This tastes like shit. This is garbage. And then a few months later, they're actually at the distillery picking a barrel. Oh, this is the best whiskey I've ever had in my life. It's out there. Look it up. But anyway, if you want to try something a little different than, say, what you're always used to, your bland, Uggs wearing bitch, try Watershed Distillery. So in 2023, they were acquired by Marussia USA, which is, I guess, Marussia, but I'm going to say Marussia because I think it's funny to say it that way. They're a Swedish company that owns several different beverage companies, including cream liqueur, sake, wine, and Japanese whiskey. You can pick up Watershed Distillery's product in Ohio at your favorite retailer, or if you don't live in Ohio, you can get the good stuff shipped to you by places like Sealbox, but they don't have much, so check with Woods Wholesale Wines to get you some. So go ahead and play that theme song again, please. I need it in my life, so we can continue on with the Bourbon Groove and bring you yet another amazing episode that we always do every Wednesday. Please play that theme song, please. 50 States of Whiskey theme song. So before we get into the end of this show, let's talk about, I mentioned the Stoli bankruptcy situation. If you don't know, Stoli is a company that makes vodka. It's actually really good flavored vodka. I haven't had it in 10 years maybe, but when I did have it, I was like, that shit tastes like blueberry. So I like to think that I have my fingers on the pulse, but also at the same time, I'm a parent and I care more about what my kid's doing and not like what's going on in the business too much. But I heard something about Kentucky Owl, but I didn't read too much into it because I've never had Kentucky Owl, and I don't think I ever will have Kentucky Owl. I remember hearing about the brand a few years ago where I think the Dixon guy, I'm sorry, I don't know him by his full name like every other influencer because I don't know him personally, and I don't know what to tell you. But he started this brand, and I remember seeing like this interview, like some kind, I don't know how I saw the interview. It was on TV or something, and he was talking about it, and it sounded really freaking good. And I was like, oh, okay. And the bottle looked cool, and the name was cool. I'm like, I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna get me some. And I think that bottle in particular was like $300. I was like, no, not interested. And then I've moved on with my life. Never once have I given a thought to buy anything Kentucky Owl since, because I don't think you should pay premium prices for shit somebody bought from other places and then mixed it and then sold it. No, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the people that like, I mean, I know blending's important. I understand. I get it, kids. But I like when someone has like a hand in it, you know what I mean? Where like the person that's representing the brand actually made said thing. Like they were like, you know what, let's do 76% corn instead of 77. The people that are making those decisions, not just the people that are like, let's just mix this around and see what happens. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, right now, obviously there is, because every fucking influencer has a problem with it all of a sudden, even though their favorite whiskeys of the year for years and years and years has been MGP based. But now they're like, oh, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. So it is pretty funny because obviously that's what people are leaning towards now is, what people are actually making and not just like what they're sourcing and selling. And I could appreciate that. Would you feel bad if you were buying a Coca-Cola and found out that Pepsi made it? How would you feel? So That's how I look at it. You know, I try to do like real world perspective. I know it's whiskey and it's something completely different, but is it really? You know, it's just it's really not. But that's how I look at that stuff. So I heard about this Stoli thing basically because I was at the liquor store picking up something on Saturday, I think it was, and it was just after a snowstorm, and all of the waspy folks were out and about buying wine and vodka. So over at these liquor stores, you can actually go and buy full cases very easily. You just hit a button. The cashier runs back there, very attitude driven because they're from New Hampshire or New England, and they're all fucking full of beans and tea. So they're all like, "What the fuck you want? You know, this is my 10th Dunkin's today, bro." So they're like losing their shit. And so you can order full cases, they'll grab them for you. And one person's like, "I would like a case of Stoli Suckass." And she's like, "We're all sold out of that." And they're like, "What?" And like the people will start getting pissy because in people in New England, anything that bad happened is a personal attack on them. So, you know, Stoli going through these hacking situations where their computer systems have been crippled by, you know, people are assuming Russians. I guess Stoli had a falling out with Russia or something, and you know, they're holding grudges or something. I don't know, and I'm not going to read into it too much because it doesn't affect my life at all. I mean, I can't get Stoli anymore, which would never happen because I don't want Stoli at all. But it's one of those things where it was funny because that happened, and then the lady next to her was like, "What? I came here to buy Stoli too," and like it's like the lady is trying to explain to him, the cashier there. She's like, "Yeah, so you know, they're going bankrupt and their systems weren't working, so nobody was getting anything, blah, 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 blah." And that was not a good answer because, you know, when you talk to somebody from New England who has already decided to be a shitbag about something, they do not hear a single goddamn word you just said. So you can, like, in this instance, she's like, "Yeah, so we don't have any Stoli left. You know, it's all gone." And this is like the lady looking for, I don't know, remember like raspberry or some shit. And then she's like, "Well, how about do you have it in tangerine?" And the lady's like, "No, I don't have any Stoli." She's like, "But like, do you have like cases of any other flavor?" And it's like watching this shit go down. It's like she has already said to you 3 different times that they have 0 Stoli left. And you just keep asking the different flavors. It's like, you don't need any more alcohol. Your brain cells are gone. Like, any more drinking, that's going to start like eating into your bones. So that's that's the life of New England for you. And I'm so glad I came back. But you know, me holding my one little bottle of a Jim Beam made product, which we will not talk about just yet because I have not come up with a song for it yet. But so I don't know if we'll ever feature in the show. But me holding that one little bottle while like people are buying like 20 to 30 bottles of wine and shit in front of me, it's like, what are you guys doing? You know, it's like, I mean, I imagine that, you know, maybe because it's in a rural area, they only go to town once a year or some shit. Or I guess with some of these brain dead numbskulls, once a week, and they buy that much stuff. But it's just, it was a bummer to hear about the Stoli thing. You never want to hear about this. So they're under like bankruptcy protection. They're trying to refinance, figure out all that shit out. You know, they're trying to figure out their systems. And, you know, again, we only care about it because it has Kentucky Owl in it, which, I mean, it's a big premium brand. I could have bought Kentucky Owl the other day. They had a bottle of it for like $115. I don't know which one it was. I don't want to buy something like that. Like, it's one of those things where like, oh, I can buy this blend of source shit for $115, or I can buy another bottle of source shit for $35, which will probably taste similar, comparable, whatever. That's why I've never been a fan of Kentucky Owl, regardless of how cool the name or the labels are. Because your boy cannot be fooled by bullshit stories or labels. Yes, you can always judge a book by a cover, but you can also be smart about your decisions. So, yeah, again, never had it. People say Kentucky Owl's good. Who cares? But, yeah, I just wanted to address that. And then also, I also want to sorry, we're running out of talk. I've talked a lot today. And then my body's like, all right, enough. But let's close out this baby. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's talk about Repeal Day. So last week was repeal day, December 5th. It was, 90 years ago, 91 years ago, where they said enough is enough. We need to start taxing people for this shit again because the government, it needs funding, and this country will implode and become a part of Mexico if we do not fucking start selling liquor again so we can tax it. It wasn't about your right as an American. People are excited and they want to talk about that stuff, and they want to be like, yo, repeal day, it's the end of prohibition. It's when the government said, yo, it's okay now, bro. You can have this shit again because we deem it so. That's just going along with it. You're being a little bitch about it because it's like, cool that they're letting you do something, but it was all meant to keep the country going. And, you could find pride in that, but it's just finding an excuse to buy more alcohol. I know. I do it all the time. So, the repeal day thing is a little silly, I think, me personally. But if you wanted to really celebrate like it's a real holiday of a time when the government told you that it was okay for you to do something you're already doing, awesome. Good for you. So it's just like the folks that, smoked weed before it was legal. And, now that it's legal, you'd be like, oh, being all like foo about it. Nobody's like that. Zero people are like that. Remember all the songs like, we need to legalize this shit. Legalize. And then they legalized it and then be like, all right, cool, thanks. And then they just go on living their life. That's how this should have been. But for some crazy ass reason, people like to celebrate every year. Don't know what to tell you, but it is what it is. So, let's get to it. Let's get back to this. Let's wrap it up. Let's call it a day. I think this is a really long episode. I didn't think it was going to be this long. I thought it was going to be much shorter. It is written out shorter, so I thought that maybe we'd be done in 5 minutes, but I guess not. So what is up with Jim Beam? What are they doing? Well, they're just beaming like it ain't no thing. They've quietly released updated expressions of the old Overholt line, including indulging purists with their original Monongahela rye recipe for that, like, Doc Holliday of Tombstone fame was known to drink, as well as dropped 20-year-old expressions, more little book chapters, and a whole lot more. And if you're asking if I've always been a fan of the Jim Beam, well, if you've heard before, the answer is no. I took a chance one day and bought a single barrel bottle and realized that Beam is badass. This was like in like the really shady area of Chattanooga. I remember going, I would buy this because I found a liquor store that sold things at the SRP, and I was like, oh, I'll try this single barrel. I think it was like 107 or 105 proof, whatever it is, whatever they proof it down to. I was like, I'm going to try this out, see what it is. Found out that it was pretty freaking badass. And yeah, I also liked the old tub and thought it was good too, but that single barrel pushed me over the edge. So when we finally moved back to New England and realized it was Beamtown, it made it for me. I was like, this is fine. We're going all in. The liquor store by the house doesn't have much of a selection, so Jim Beam tends to be where I skew towards. The other liquor stores around us, however, is a different story. I like to go and like look for the other cool stuff that is out there. But, as long as I don't want to drive an hour or two, that's what we're going with. So shout out Jim Beam for just quietly just making a whole bunch of new stuff with the stuff you've already had, and like, introducing new things instead of being like one of those big ass brands who doesn't do much change. So it's pretty cool to see them really branching out and stuff. I know that people hate them for various reasons, whether it be, your Basil Hayden being 80 proof and being expensive. It's like, okay, it's like, again, pick your battles, just don't buy it. Which I think right now we actually have a special deal on Basil Hayden here, which is interesting. I think it's like a 1 liter or 1.75 for the price of a normal bottle. And then we also have the Sazerac Rye. You could buy 2 bottles for $45 here. Isn't that wild? That's a wild time. It's a wild time to be alive. Meanwhile, when I was living in Tennessee, you would lucky to find it for $35 a bottle. Sometimes they would mark it up to 40 to 45. And like quite literally I get double the amount for the same price. Wild times, and tax-free. Crazy stuff. But anyway, so as for CAAMP, they've been radio silent for quite some time. Looks like the last time we saw of this band was back in 2023, so they might be gearing up to drop some new shiz for that ass, or they might have called it quits. I mean, I could look into it some more, but again, I am a parent and my time is divvied up to my job and my kid. And that's just what it is. So, and if you're wondering why I keep drinking water, because that's how we balance this stuff out. So I'm not too when I get out of here. So, though back in August, actually, if I remember correctly, of this year, CAAMP released a collaboration with Richie, Mitch, and the Coal Miners called Evergreen. Never heard of this group until doing this show. So I threw that on the playlist for this episode because, well, why not, right? So the band also established the Great Heights movement in 2022. This is what they say it's all about. Established by CAAMP in 2022, the Great Heights movement supports charitable programs primarily in the Columbus, Ohio area, as well as other communities the band encounters both nationally and internationally. The Great Heights movement is administered by the Columbus Foundation. CAAMP is committed to responding to needs centered around music education, social justice, and sustainability. You gotta love a band that's looking out for others. It's pretty sweet. So basically, this foundation says, we're gonna right a wrong. Whatever it is, whatever we deem wrong, we're gonna right it. And that's pretty fucking cool. But that's all we got for this episode. Thanks for listening. It felt like it was extended. And you're like, well, aren't you going to talk about the Christmas episode? Yes, let's talk about it. So here are 2 hints. One, it is a remix of one of our very early episodes when we were called Bourbon on Wax. And it is the only show that we played music where it was not the artist that we were covering, because I had no idea how the hell the Spotify thing worked when we first started doing this show. So back when we were allowed to play music, I think there's some kind of licensing that has changed, so we can't do that anymore. So that's why we're not exclusive anymore, all the other different stuff. So I could play the music of the band, and what I thought you would hear was only 30 seconds of that clip, because I actually did not have Spotify at the time. I had chosen Apple Music because they pay the artist just a little bit more. So instead of just the little eyebrow of a Abraham Lincoln penny, you are getting like the goatee, with Apple Music for the artist, basically. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that's why I was doing Apple Music, and so I was using Spotify. So the only thing that I heard when doing these shows was 30 seconds of a song. And that artist, the song that had been inspired by the alcohol that I had drank, I wanted to play that song, but the clip that I heard was only an instrumental part of the song. So I was like, all right, I looked it up and I found the original version of that song and played that because it had a better representation of that song, even though it wasn't the same artist, though it was in a certain way. And that's also another hint. That's a bonus hint just for you. So it is a duet, and the duet is done by the original person that sang it, or maybe not. They might have done a cover. But anyway, either way, music is crazy, especially in the 50s and 60s. Who knew what was going on? And then it was re-recorded by somebody recently who has their own Christmas album. Another hint. And that's all you're going to get. So that's going to be on the Christmas episode. That is dropping on Christmas. Straight up. Christmas is on Wednesday this year, and we ain't going to break that streak of every Wednesday releasing a new episode. So that's what's happening on December 25th. We will have a new show for you next week as well, which I believe mathematically that's what, the 16th or 17th? I don't know. But we're going to have a new episode then. We're going to do a crazy Christmas thing going on the Christmas episode, possibly a cocktail or possibly a bottle. I don't know. We haven't done it yet, so I can't tell you. So we'll see what happens. But thank you so much for listening to The Bourbon Groove. I appreciate you all for listening. Really, it means a lot to me. And thank you again. Please tell your friends about it. Please drink whiskey to the show. Please listen to the music that we suggest. You can go to the continuous playlist that you'll find in the show notes if you don't want to go through all that trouble. Or you can like independently search these bands and brands and, you know, figure out what you like too. And let me know what music you hear or what music you listen to when you drink whiskey. I'm interested, you know. I might have this weird thing where I taste music, but that doesn't have to be the only thing we talk about. We could talk about, you know, how you stubbed your toe once and then you're out of work for 6 months. You know, I want to know everything about you. I want to know your blood type. I want to know where you live. I want to know your social security number and how good your credit score is. All that stuff and more. DM me at the Bourbon Groove on Instagram. We're not really active on that. I know, again, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. You know, I'm not a social media whore. I'm just not. You know, all my time is put into other things, other projects that I'm doing that are independent of this show. So, thanks again. I've been Tyler. I'll be Tyler next week until at least the middle of May of next year, and then I'll be probably something else. So thanks for listening again to the Bourbon Groove. So I think, try to remember our tagline. I haven't done it in a couple weeks now. Pour yourself a song and listen to your favorite whiskey. Yeah, that's it. And get into the Bourbon Groove, baby.
The Bourbon Groove is a foreign Star Works production. Recorded at It Might Just Be a Garage Studios.